I want to get better at drawing the figure, so I'm working on each part of it one at a time. I'm starting with what I think is one of the most important parts of the whole figure. The face is normally going to be the focus of a drawing, and it's where the characters can express a lot of their emotions. But a lot of expression is throughout the whole of the figure as well though. Also, the top of the figure just feels like a good place to start. In this video, I'm going to learn the structure of the head so that I can draw it consistently from a bunch of different angles. And hopefully I'll make an improvement on my current skills. So let's just get straight to it. So to start off, I need to learn the overall structure of the head. And this is where I already kind of cheated with the challenge. To be honest, before starting this, I had already spent a little bit of time learning to draw the skull. The skull is super important to understand when you're drawing the head because it's basically the framework that the whole face is built on. It might seem weird to draw the skull when I don't really want to draw skeletons for my comics or anything like that, but it's absolutely necessary though. The actual facial features can move around and are just made of muscle and skin, but the bones underneath are solid and don't move around at all, apart from this one. So they're basically our landmarks in perspective. When I was trying to learn this, I split the skull into smaller parts rather than trying to learn the whole thing at once. Next, I practiced drawing each of these parts in a planar form. Basically, I was drawing like a low poly version of the form, instead of trying to draw it all with the organic details and stuff. This was really helpful for simplifying it and actually understanding the basic form that I was trying to draw. After this, I added on the next part of the skull and did the same thing. I did this until I was eventually rotating the whole skull. Of course, I had areas and angles that were more difficult than others, and I still struggle with some of it now. But I just tried to focus on those specific weaknesses until I understood them a bit better. Moving forward, I want to try and apply the same approach to simplifying the forms of everything in the face, and in the rest of the figure too. Next, I moved on to the eyes. For this, I tried to think about the placement of the eyes within the skull. Without the skin, the eyes are just two spheres inside the eye socket basically. Everything else is wrapping around the spheres, so it's important to keep that in mind. When it came to rotating the eye, I needed to remember this spherical form. So I practiced rotating the eye around with the underlying sphere in mind. I think I could have done better with this, but the mistakes are just stuff I have to iron out by trying it again and again. The most important thing to think about is the eyelids wrapping around the eyeball. When it comes to the rest of the forms around the eye, I broke it down again into planes. Obviously, it can be difficult and confusing to make up these low poly models for something that you don't fully understand yet. So I made a lot of use of a website called Sketchfab. On this site, you can view 3D models and rotate them around, and there's a lot of useful resources on there for learning parts of the body. I just searched for a planar model of the eye and I drew it from reference until I memorized most of the planes, and then I just practiced rotating it from imagination. As I said before though, I could definitely use a lot more repetitions of this to really solidify the knowledge all the way. I think a part that I found especially confusing was the change from a convex to a concave form above the eye. It's not really complicated, but I did struggle to understand it for a while. For the nose, I just basically followed the same process. I just searched for a planar model on Sketchfab, memorized it, and then rotated it. One thing I did find useful when learning the form though was starting with a much simpler version and then gradually increasing the level of detail. For the nose, I started with just a simple wedge shape, and after I understood that well enough, I eventually changed it to something which looked a little bit more like a real nose. One issue with increasing the level of detail though is that you shouldn't take it too far. At a certain point, you need to just draw the organic shape instead of just drawing a bunch of tiny little planes, because it's so difficult to remember all these tiny little planes, especially for something like the bulb area of the nose. You're basically just drawing a disco ball. You might as well just draw a smooth sphere. For the mouth, I actually followed a completely different process. And no, that was just a lie. I basically just did the same thing again. One thing I had to keep in mind is that the teeth area of the skull is more curved than the rest. So the mouth curves a little bit more than the rest of the features. When the camera is at a low or a high angle, this is made especially clear. I did actually struggle with the high and low angles of the head overall, so this is something that I had to just focus on specifically. When I was struggling with a specific angle at first, I was just trying it over and over again and it just still didn't look right. When I didn't know why something didn't look right, I was kind of stuck on how to fix it. But that's where reference helped me a lot. I just had to look at the reference, which Sketchfab is perfect for, and then compare it to what I was drawing so that I could see the mistakes. When I did this, I could see that for the low angles, I wasn't making the features short enough. Like, I wasn't foreshortening it properly. And at the high angles, I was making the head kind of wide. So after learning all of the different features, I was more confident with the structure of the head. I felt like I could definitely draw from more angles than I could before. I'm still making a lot of mistakes that I need to fix by just doing more practice and comparing it to references, but it's still an improvement from where I was previously. To see if I progressed at all, I wanted to do a sketch of the face from an angle that I would have struggled with before. For this sketch, I drew Wraith from Apex Legends because I did another sketch of her recently. I intentionally tried to draw like a weird or difficult angle. I definitely feel that after learning the structure of the face, I had a much easier time with this than I would have before. I can definitely still feel that there's a lot of improvement that I have to make. I think that I'm understanding the form more, but executing it properly is still really difficult. So I guess for a 1 week experiment, it kind of shows that maybe a week is just not enough to get really good at this one thing. Or maybe I just needed to put a lot more hours in throughout the week. I think that if I just spend a lot of time doing a bunch of repetitions and trying to solidify the things that I learned, I'll be way better at this. I also added colors to this sketch, which is something that I want to practice but way later on. Right now I was just doing it for fun. I don't really have a lot of practice with painting, so I'm obviously like really bad at it. And it might have actually ruined this drawing more than if I just did it with lines. For anyone else who wants to try to learn drawing faces, or the figure, or just really anything, I really recommend following the process of just simplifying forms down to their most basic forms. Obviously, the simplest form to learn is the cube, so learning to draw boxes is really important. If you're interested in a video about boxes and basic forms, leave a comment and I can do something about that. I don't think 7 days is nearly enough time to completely master something, especially from zero knowledge, but I do think that in a short amount of time you can make a lot of progress if you go through things with a good system and spend a lot of time. Because I have to admit, over this 7 days, I just did what I had to do. I didn't really sit there and spend the whole day drawing. So maybe next time I should experiment with what happens if I just wake up, draw and sleep. Thank you a lot for watching, and if you found the video helpful or interesting, hit the subscribe button. I want to share a lot more videos about the stuff that I'm learning because I spend a lot of time trying to, learn how to draw, so I think it would just be interesting to document all of that. Thanks a lot, and see you guys next time.